Mejia from Bytes podcast. Today I have the privilege of talking to Aleron Kong, author of the Chaos Seed series. He has published recently his fourth book in the series, Catacombs. And while there are some controversies around its titling, some sending, it is an amazing book in addition to the series in general. It was great talking to him. He's such a fun guy to talk to. Hope you guys enjoyed the interview. He also has some amazing announcements that you do not want to miss. So we're going to have all of his information in the show notes for this interview and for the YouTube page and on geekbytespodcast.com, of course. Also make sure that you click on all the links for him so you can find all the places where you can find his stuff and all his other books, of course. And as usual, check out our LItRPG listing on our webpage at geekbytespodcast.com under the recommendation section. We have over 80 series recommendations at this point for you to enjoy in the LItRPG genre. Enjoy the interview, folks. And again, I'm Ramon from Geek Bytes Podcast. Hey everyone, welcome to this wonderful interview I have. With me today is Aleron Kong. I'm, of course, Ramon Mejia from Geek Bytes Podcast, and today we had the pleasure of talking to the author of the best-selling Chaos Seed series. He's recently released a new book into the series called Catacombs. I've been reading it. I think it's absolutely amazing, folks. Welcome the best-selling author, Aleron Kong, the father of American LItRPG. Welcome, man.
Hey, man. I'm so happy to be back. This is awesome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, definitely my pleasure. I know you're a busy man. You got doctor stuff to do. You got a whole bunch of wonderful plans for the future of a LItRPG community. We talked about this a little before the show of the title of the father of American LItRPG. I think it's very appropriate to, if you're going to grab that title, I think you're doing some great things. You're creating a wonderful LItRPG community for us. You're almost the, you're from your stories, you're Richard and we're your Miss Village, man. So thanks for coming on.
I really appreciate that, man. I remember the very first time I read it and I was like, where has this story been my whole life? I was reading the story of Ash by D.W. Jackson, and I don't know, I still kind of feel the same way. And I think it's super cool that there are more and more people being woken up to the genre, and they're saying, wow, this is the story that I've always wanted for my whole life. So I feel like the more we can get it out there and the more we can tie what we're doing with the growth of MMORPGs as a whole, like the fact that there's some statistic we're supposed to be like a $17 billion industry MMORPGs by 2018. I think that we have a place in that. And I think that there's a lot of people that are like dying for these stories and don't even know they're out there yet.
Yeah, absolutely. You think of the gaming communities, the people who just love to watch people play video games on Twitch, that's our community. And it's, so there's plenty of people left to bring into the fold and to bring into the cult of LItRPG at this point. Now, for our people who are first-time listeners, people first-time hearing about the community and LItRPG, can you first tell us about yourself a little bit?
Yeah. All right. So I'm a physician. I live in Atlanta, Georgia. And I, like I said, sort of fell into LItRPG about maybe a year and a half ago. And like a lot of you probably read everything that was out there, loved some of it, maybe not so much some of the other ones, but definitely was like hunting through Amazon one night. And I was like, why the hell haven't these bastards written more LItRPG? And it was just kind of the perfect storm. I was looking for a creative project and I decided to finally start writing. Like in the back of my head, I was always like, hey, I could be a writer one day. Not really, maybe, I don't know. And when I started it, I just thought, hey, maybe I can make, my dad read this and maybe one or two of my buddies. But it took off. And I was blessed enough that people were really enjoying the story that I was telling. And I'm just feel really blessed that I have a lot of story left to tell. So that's in a nutshell. That's how it's kind of all come to here. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's one of the beautiful things about this community of ours is that the barrier to entry is really low. Like when I personally have thought about being an author in the past, I look at the stories that I love the most, J.R.R. Tolkien, space operas. I'm like, I can never write those things. I have no idea how to set up those huge worlds where, epic journeys. It all seems very daunting if you look at those aspects. But within this smaller community where it's essentially a game story, your character goes in, he levels, he progresses, he has a good time, adventures, that type of stuff, that seems like a much more reasonable place to start a writing career. And I think for a lot of people, especially as we see in the community, more and more first time authors just jumping into writing their first lit RPG stories and publishing them. Even I think that's lower barrier of entry, even if it's psychological. It makes our community very broad.
I agree. I think that, I mean, it's only been in the US for about 3 years tops. As far as I know, it's only really been in Russia and Asia for a decade. So it's extremely new. But yeah, a lot of people are finding that the voice that they never really felt like they could express. I mean, like, who can say like, okay, I love Robert Jordan, so let me write like Robert Jordan. I mean, it's insane, you know. But a lot of people are finding the comfort to start writing, and I think that we're going to see lit RPG not only growing, but lit RPG is springboarding people into other, you know, realms. Because I think a lot of it was psychological. And I know for me, in the back of my own mind, I was like, oh, I can never actually be a writer until I actually started writing. And I don't know, I've been really blessed and lucky enough that people have reached out and they're like, hey, I read your book. It sort of inspired me to whatever. And like, you know, these people are getting published now, which is amazing and awesome. So I love that our community is growing both in readers and writers. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. I agree with you. Now, again, for the first-time listeners who aren't familiar with your storylines, can you tell us a little bit about the Chaos Seed series and kind of give us a summary of what it's about? Maybe a little introduction to it as well.
Yeah, so the Chaos Seed series is basically you are taking people from Earth who are the quote-unquote Chaos Seeds. And they're humans, but the point is that you look at all the tumultuous things that happens to us all the time, and maybe we have a little bit of a spark of chaos in our hearts or in our souls. And we're being transplanted into this planet called the Land. And so basically we're following the story of Richter, who is just some random dude who is walking through life, doing his thing, and what he develops in. And the other thing is, I had this like really fun idea one day when I was like clicking through the, you know, acceptances for like Dark Souls 2, and I was like, it's all this stuff. I'm not actually reading all this crap, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, what if there really was like a, you're selling your soul to me, you know, in the fine print, no one would ever know. And it's kind of the preface for why these powerful people, like, you know, beings are able to pull, you know, people from Earth into the Land. So basically you're looking at Richter and the mistakes that he makes and the fun things that he does. But for me, I really wanted to make a story with some humor. So that's, you know, a big part of what I'm doing. But also I wanted to make a realistic story. I hated the component of MMORPGs where if you're a level 5 something, there's no possible way you could beat like a level 60 something. And I wanted it to be a little bit more realistic. Like if I was going up against a Navy SEAL, yeah, I'm going to get my ass kicked pretty much every time. But if I hit him with a rock before he saw me, it might work out a little bit differently. And the Land is very much like that too. Obviously, higher level beings are more powerful, but given the right set of circumstances, anyone can win on any given day. So you're not really creating this overpowered character that no one can ever beat. You're making someone who, if he, you know, gets cocky or steps down the wrong alley at the wrong time of night, then that might be the end of him. Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. I think that's a wonderful summary up to the series in general. And you really do get a sense within your stories that your main character is not all powerful. He's one person, but he creates a community around him that makes him a force to be reckoned with within the world of the Land. And it's not just him that's important. It's his friend. It's a community. Like you said, you have a sense of humor, and I think there's also a sense of that community, of those friendships, that makes your story very engaging for a lot of different readers.
Definitely, I'm having as much fun with the side characters as I am with Richter. I never really wanted the books to sort of follow a formula where you can get bored and you're like, oh, okay, I know that 25% of this is going to happen and 50% of this is going to happen. So, you know, there are going to be some books that are just Richter and his best friend Cyan maybe doing a dungeon crawl. There are going to be other books where like Richter fades back a little bit and you're seeing the Mist Village is actually the character that we're looking at. And I liked being able to give something different to the readers when they're coming. I liked doing a little bit of misdirection, which actually led people to be a little angry with me during the last book. And there are going to be some short web videos that I'm going to be putting up to sort of like pay attention to that, which should be fun for everyone. But yeah, one of my favorites was, I think I remember this correctly, where a guy was like, hey, asshole, Your fourth book, I almost broke my Kindle. I hope you die. So yeah, people got a little incensed.
But he's more than willing to pre-order number 5, though.
Yeah, so I think that book 5 is more than going to make up for it. It's definitely going to be much more in keeping with the title of the book, or is it? I don't know. Yeah, it will be, and it's definitely going to be a bit longer based on some of the requests from my fans. I do think that it'd be super cool that like every 5 or every 10, there's going to be something a bit more special about that book. A little extra oomph. So.
Okay, I'm wonderful to hear. We'll talk about that a little bit more. We're right now. Let's focus back on your most recently published novel, The Catacombs. Can you tell me what's kind of happened in The Catacombs that's different from the other 3?
So The Catacombs is much more about focusing on the development of the village. It was more about setting up the realistic process of what's going to have to happen for something to go from just like being like a collection of huts to becoming a more legitimate settlement, including interaction with other settlements, including defenses, including a little bit of diplomacy and a little bit of trade, and just sort of like laying the foundation for the things that are going to come in the future. One of the things that people seem like they're unhappy about is they're like, why is this thing that I wanted to happen not happening yet? But again, I like a story that's more realistic and like, hey, we're in the middle of the woods. This sucks, which is why we don't live in the middle of the woods. We need to figure out how to do this. And it takes a certain amount of time. Also, I find that a lot of my readers are, because they've been reading it for a year, they're assuming like years have passed. And really, it's been like 3 or 4 months. And for that, I'm actually going to be releasing a version 2 of the books. And there's definitely going to be like a date and time at the top so that you get an idea of like what's going on. But no, The Catacombs is much more about focusing on developing some of Richter's skills, focusing on developing some of the potential of the Mist Village, and setting the sort of springboard for where book 5 is going to be going.
Awesome. Yeah. I love book 4 personally. I had some of the same issues when we first talked. I was like, wait, it's only been months or weeks, and I personally had the same issue. Like because they're released every 2 months, you think, oh, that's how much time has passed in this actual world of the land. But it kind of does mesh well with the idea of it being in a game world, because when you're playing a video game, especially an MMO, time essentially stops within that world. You can spend months and months building all the skill trees you want, learning everything you want, and within that game world, very little time has actually passed. So yeah.
So I mean, we'll see. I think that as long as people are having a reaction to it, then I must be doing something right, because I really wanted to make a story that people could be emotionally invested in. So that's the point.
Oh no, people are definitely invested in this, man. You read from some of the comments or the reviews about book 4. They're very passionate, we'll say. Even though they give you 4 or 5 stars in your book because they love the series and they love your writing and your characters. There's definitely some very opinionated people out there who get very angry at the very end of book 4. There's a huge cliffhanger, which is very expressly addressed. I don't think it's spoilery, because if you read the comments or the reviews, people yell about it. They say they've thrown their books, they've thrown their Kindles, through walls when they get to it. And I was one of those people. I was like, wait, you can't just stop here. What?
Without even the courtesy of a reach around, what the hell? No, I know it's a cliffhanger, but I've said it to some of the people. I feel like if we're talking about a token, or if we're talking about a Good Kind or a Jordan, kind of book, it's like it is a continuation of the series, but each book is very much a self-enclosed and encapsulated world where you're like, oh, I'm interested in knowing what happens with these 2 or maybe 3 plot threads that are going to keep going, but everything else has been neatly bound up. That's not really the way that my writing style is. Mine is a lot closer to like an episode of Battlestar Galactica or an episode of like Scandal, where you're like, oh my God, what's going to happen next week? And it's exciting for me too, where I have a very good idea about like the major points that I want to hit. But when I'm writing within my world, it develops organically as it's going to. And so it's, it's surprising and exciting for me too. There are definitely times where I'm like, oh, I wanted this to happen. And as my characters sort of speak to me, I realize that's not really exactly what is going to happen. It's going to be something else. So there's very clear, like, major bullet points that I was going to hit. But honestly, when I first started writing, I assumed that I would have gotten from point A to point B within the first 2 books, and I'm like 10% of A to B at this point. So yeah.
No, I absolutely hear you. I started writing my first LItRPG story myself, and I'm hitting the same thing.
Awesome,
like I have in my mind like this nice plot point. Okay, I'm going to start off here. He's going to go this much pericope at the a third of the book, and I'm like halfway through the book, and I haven't even finished that first point yet because there's so many details that I hadn't considered that need to be in there to set up all the things I want to do later on. And and unless I'm just going to arbitrarily skip things and advance 10 years in the future, you have to have that growth, and that takes time.
You do. And I would not recommend skipping things, because compared to my friends, I am definitely like the uber Star Trek-y kind of dork. But then when you get into our community, you realize there are people that are majorly outdorking you, and they will land on you like a sumo wrestler. They'll be like, this does not make sense, and they will destroy you.
Absolutely. And to me, I love those passionate people. They make up your community. They're your most vocal advocates. They're the ones who will pre-order your hardcover book for $20 because they love the series. But at the same time, of course, they have opinions, and it's important to acknowledge their opinions, even if you don't address them or you don't change your book for them. It's important to say, you know what, I get what you're saying. I'll take it in consideration, and that's part of the community.
One of my beta readers, who's been like my #1 fan from day one, honestly, he's been like amazing. But he and I have got like 2-week-long arguments about something. He's like, if you really think about it, this is going to happen. I'm like, well, I really did think about it, and it's not going to happen. He's like, well, I think you need to rethink that. And I'm like, well, I think you need to leave me the hell alone. And like, we've like literally, it's like gone. It's like 50,000 messages on this like Facebook group chat that we have, and it just goes back and forth. And then it's like, he's like, fine, agree to disagree at the end of the day. But yeah, I love that there's the passion. And honestly, for me, like going to the forums and like, reading that kind of stuff that people are saying is like one of the most fun things for me. It's awesome to, as a reader and a lover of LItRPG and an author of LItRPG, to have found a resonance with people that, my friends, I love them to death, but they're just not really into this kind of stuff. And it's awesome to find people that are into this kind of stuff. It's like we're uniting, very Flight Clubby. Like they don't know. We cook their meals. They don't want to mess with us, basically.
No, so. I absolutely hear finding your community is probably one of the greatest things you can do in life. I mean, you have your different friends for different things. You have your drinking buddy, you have your friends you go to the sports games with, but having a community of friends that love, the same books that you do, the same kind of stories that you do, or just authors that you can talk to about this thing that you're so passionate about. I think that's really important, but also affirming when you read comments about people loving this thing you poured your heart and soul into. It's such a great feeling that you're connecting with somebody through the books of a page.
It's very much like just honestly, it's just like this like awesome vindication, this like huge hug. It's great. There's this old hook from like an Erykah Badu song where she goes, hey, keep in mind I'm an artist and I'm sensitive about my shit. So it's like, there's other times where like someone writes something and I don't like it, and academically, I'm like, well, everyone's entitled to their opinion. But what I'm actually thinking is you need to like die like now. Like I hate you. You're the worst person ever. But no, I mean, it's
one of your kids.
It's very, I'm pouring my heart into it. It's my love. It's what I'm about. Yeah.
Yeah, no, in a lot of ways, I liken it to like having a kid. It's a part of you, yet at the same time, it's its own kind of existence, and it kind of makes its own decisions in life. And when people treat it well, it makes you feel good. When people treat it poorly, or they think poorly of it, you get real mama bear about it, and you get
very much. I'm very protective of my story, and that's why we were talking about the audio thing before. Like I was just like, yeah, I can't work with this. I never really, it's like it's not like overly dramatic, but I definitely get like when they portray like a silly artist on TV that's like, oh, this is whatever. And I'm like, okay, well, that's just some squiggles on a canvas. I don't understand what you're talking about. But I will say that for me on my side, like, yeah, this is my baby. It's something that I treasure more than almost anything else. So
No, I hear you, man. Especially since I've started writing personally, even though my story's not amazing, and my wife is kind of the only person who's reading currently.
It could be amazing,
Um, yeah, it absolutely could. Yeah, I plan for it to be amazing. At some point when it's finished, I do plan to publish it. I'm not one of those people who just writes and nobody ever sees it.
Yeah.
It's very much in the early stages. I have like 3 chapters, something like 20,000 words. But even at this point, I have a very solid connection to my characters, and just
Hmm.
changing things about them is sometimes very difficult for me because
Yeah.
they feel like real people in my mind that have had these arcs and these stories and these decisions. And I've actually found that my plans have changed because within this world, these characters aren't me. They're going to make their own decisions. They're going to choose their own character choices, their own skill choices, and they kind of become their own people.
It's funny that you say that because like I have 1,000 computations going on in the back of my mind constantly, and there was a plot arc that there just was something missing, and then I realized that something missing was that there was going to be a sacrifice of a character that was starting to become a little bit beloved, and I had a moment of sadness when I thought about that, and I realized that we're gonna miss him, but yeah, it's where the story's gonna go.
Oh, you're gonna make me cry. I don't even know who's gonna die yet.
No, but yeah, I mean, you know, it's more important to stay true to the rules of the world for me.
Yeah,
So
we talked about this I think in the last interview as well, that the rules that bind your world kind of determine where things go. Sometimes whether it's a good or bad,
yeah,
sacrifices or triumphs, it's
yeah,
those core rules. And if you start bending them just
mhm,
to satisfy your own ego, the readers notice. They notice that,
yeah,
oh, this doesn't match up anymore, and you're not
yeah,
being true to this world anymore as an author, and that affects their view of the ungenuineness of your world now.
yeah. I agree. You gotta. Sometimes it hurts. Sometimes it
It
hurts.
does. Okay, let's
Yeah.
talk about something a slightly happier, hopefully. What are you working on currently?
So right now, as far as just the literary straight, I am in the process of book 5. I'm about maybe like 25 to a third of the way in. Kuvasa, who's one of my biggest fans and proponents, he said, "Hey, you should just make book 5 a lot longer." And I've listened, and book 5 is going to be a thicker volume. There's going to be a lot more development that goes into it, and I think that my readers can start looking forward to that on, like, I don't know, maybe multiples of 5, maybe not, because I always love messing with my readers a little bit. Maybe it'll come a little earlier or later. But 5 is going to be a much larger contribution to the world than otherwise. So there's that. I'm also working on like a revamp of books 1 through 3. One of the awesome things about doing this audiobook is that I could just decide there's just little tweaks that are going to be like more fun. And so on my website, I actually put up that there's like a change log, like, for patch, 1.2 or something like
Oh,
that.
is that what
Um,
that's about? I saw that. I was wondering, is this just admin testing stuff?
yeah. So, I mean, no, it's basically just, it's a change log, and it's like little things, like little minor nuances where I flesh out the descriptions of certain weapons more, or I, change, I don't know, like I added a little bit more to Tarad's backstory to make it more encompassing with, where I wanted him to go and things like that. But so I'm working on a version 1 through 3 of that. So that'll be out sometime soon. And I'm have some great new guys who are going to be my gamma readers. They're going to help me go through that. So that's going to be awesome. And I am working on an audio version. So that will be done September 1st or 2nd, I believe. And that actually very much coincides with the fact that I'm going to have the first annual Mist Village LItRPG gala. And it's going to be the Thursday before Dragon Con. So that's going to be awesome. Beer pong with awards at the end. There's going to be mini archery, darts. It's basically the same thing. I'm thinking about, we're going to get some models to walk around in cosplay, take some commemorative pictures. Definitely going to be some like merchandising for the village, and also just for LItRPG as a whole. And honestly, like, I love that we are growing, and I feel like we need to start, establishing ourselves a little bit more, and we need to have a lot of fun while we do it. So hopefully people are going to be coming down to Dragon Con. I picked a venue that is within walking distance of every major, hotel where they'd be staying, and we can just have a good time.
Yeah, no, this absolutely sounds like a wonderful opportunity for the community who's mostly online at this point to meet together, see each other physically. I know a lot of other like large communities do the same kind of things. I think you picked a perfect venue of Dragon Con because there's so much fantasy. There's so many great fans already in the area anyways for the con. So, hey, you know what? If you're into LITRPG and you're in the area anyways, come stop by. I personally have to look at my finances to see if I can make it out there. I live in California myself, guys, so I may or may not make it, but I hopefully cross my fingers, count as a business expense.
Yeah, I think it'd be good. But no, it's going to be on September 1st from 6 to 9, and then obviously we keep going if we're having a good time. And it's going to be at Sidebar Atlanta, and I'm going to be putting up, posts about it, and there's going to be things on the website. I'm also thinking I'm going to get a Kickstarter together to sort of, if people want to chip in like $5, $10, $25, and there will be like gifts that come along with that, and also to help increase the profile of this thing that we love. So yeah,
it benefits everybody, and plus it's just a good time to talk to the people in person that you've been talking to online. It's one of those great gathering things. I love the idea that you're creating this community, not just online, but also a physical manifestation of the love we have for this common genre. And you're being a great community leader.
Well, I mean, it's because of love, man. I love geeking out with all my friends that are, I've never really met, but at this point, it's like we've been talking for 6 months to a year. I talk to you guys more than my family, which is, fine. And that's, so, I mean, it's awesome. It would be great if we could finally face to face, and it'd be great if more authors could come out too, and we could all just really just vibe, eat some wings, and have a good time. Yeah.
No, it sounds absolutely great. And I assume you're going to put the details up on your webpage.
LitRPG.com at some point. I'm going to put it on the LitRPG books. It's going to be on my author page. It'll be everywhere. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to invade other people's forums and just do the whole thing. Everyone's going to know about it. Yeah.
Absolutely wonderful here. Look forward to seeing you there. Hopefully, cross my fingers. I've also noticed that you mentioned something about a comic book series potentially coming out sometime in the future.
Absolutely. That is done. My first comic book is done. My initial thought was that to develop the stories of some of my side characters, I could do like a 7 or 8 comic book run, and it would just sort of be a cool modality to get together that wasn't, just like writing an anthology, which is something I'm also interested in. But I was like, hey, let's just do something fun. It took 5 months to get that first comic book done, and the first comic book is really just the prologue of book 1, and I was going to use it as a test, like, hey guys, do you like this? If so, I'll make some more. And honestly, just the logistics of getting it done were daunting. So it's not something I've completely let go of, but until I can find an artist that like we really share the same bit, like the guy that I'm working with is awesome. I mean, I think people are really going to like the art, but he's an architectural student in Spain who was like, I got to take boards. I got to take my finals, man. I can't talk to you right now. And so then, we didn't stay in touch for about 6 weeks. So, it's difficult, but hopefully as we come up, we're going to get more and more people. I would love if I could find, some pimply 10th grader who could do my webpage. I would happily pay him, but it's a pain in the butt trying to do it myself. So.
No, I absolutely hear all those little details. It's surprising how complicated they can be. You just think, oh, I'll send someone an email, they'll make some stuff for me, and we'll put it up on the internet. And sometimes it's that easy, but a lot of times it's just complicated and hard.
There really are. And, working with other artists, everyone has their own ideal, and you want to respect where people are coming from, but at the same time, you want it to be in keeping with, what your vision is. And, I mean, it's always a slightly like, we're like, hey, let me be a little passive aggressive and say this. And they're like, okay, I'm going to be a little passive aggressive back. And, but I think that, there's a lot of exciting things that are coming up for the land, the Mist Village, and honestly, just for LitRPG as a whole. So
yeah, absolutely. Now, just to recap, the new things that you have coming out, you have the LitRPG community event September 1st. You have your comic book. Does that actually have a publication date on it?
So that's another thing. So I mean, like as far as like an ebook, that's done. I mean, I could put that up tomorrow. But as far as getting it done as a limited run press, I just need to sort of see, who's available for that. What are the other things? That was one of the things that were going to be, if you kicked in however much for the Kickstarter, you know, you get the comic book, I would sign it for you. Like, you know, you get that at you know, when you came to the group, where I would send it to you. So again, it's not difficult, but when I have a list of, you know, 50 other things that I need to get done, it just gets a little logistically hard to, you know, shop around, find the right person, all that kind of stuff.
Oh no, I hear you. Publishing, physical publishing is surprisingly difficult. There's a lot of hoops you got to run through. Price quotes, different people will charge different things. They want a part of the rights and royalties sometimes. It's much easier to just throw it on the internet for people to buy, you know, digitally these days, which is one of the keys to this community growing so fast is that most of the stuff is just digital. And so there are fewer hoops for people to publish the first time, whether it's a book or a comic book or a video, whatever. And I like that part of it. You also mentioned, though, that you have an audiobook that's coming out. Can you tell me more about that?
Yeah, so I have just actually found an awesome narrator and editor. So that was signed about 2 days ago, and the projected finish date for book 1 is going to be September 1st or 2nd. The guy that I'm working with is just very professional, and he's, you know, very clear. Like, I could get this out earlier, but I plan to have it be stellar, and that takes 2 months. So based on how that goes, you know, I'll keep moving forward with the rest of them. But I mean, this guy is kind of like highly in demand as well for a lot of other authors. So we have to kind of, you know, work around that. But hopefully every 2 to 3 months, I'll have another audiobook out as well. So, you know, for people that, you know, are just kind of running, they can have access to it. Yeah.
And your publication schedule is really, really tight. I got to say, like every 2 months you come out with a book, and now you're going to come out every 2 or 3 months for an audiobook version of it. And then you're going to have comics being published. This is a lot of stuff. And in addition to that, you have an actual job. You're a doctor, I think for Kaiser Permanente, right? And so there's balancing all this creative stuff and this actual job stuff. And personally, I don't know how you do it, but hey, you're doing it well.
Honestly, like I'm just kind of running. And the only answer I can give is that I'm sure everyone's heard like, oh, well, you know, when you find your passion, it doesn't even really feel like work. That's the way that it is. I mean, sometimes I want to, you know, strangle my book because it's passionate, but it just feels like who I am and what I'm about. And it's an act of creation that just, I don't know, it kind of gives like a validity to me. We were talking before that, you know, writing a book is almost like, you know, giving birth to a child and raising it and seeing it come up, and it feels like that. So it is just this amazing blessing for me that I can write this kind of stuff, and even more that, you know, there's dudes and dudettes out there that are kind of liking the story. So that's awesome.
Yes, book parenting is difficult.
Yeah, it is not easy, but luckily they can't get pregnant. So that's a, you know,
that depends on the kind of story that you're writing.
That's depend on the kind of story that you're writing. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, spin-offs.
Yeah,
you know, children. Okay. Moving to the LItRPG community in a larger sense, our community is growing. What do you think of the state of LItRPG right now, though?
I think that there are a lot of people that are finding comfort in expressing their voices, and I think that there's a couple of things that we could look at. One, it's awesome that people are putting more stuff out there. And unfortunately, as a writer and like doing all those things you're talking about, my reading has just gone down, you know, like by like 1,000%. I used to be like everyone else. I would consume a book in anywhere between 4 and 24 hours. But now it's like there's 1,000 other things that I'm trying to do, and unfortunately, I haven't been able to read some of these really cool titles that people are, you know, feeling. And actually, I have to apologize to some of like, you know, my friends / readers who are like, "Hey, can you check this out?" And I'm like, "Yeah, no, I'm totally going to do that." And then I just get wrapped up, and I haven't gotten to it yet. So that's definitely something I'm going to start paying more attention to. I also think though that there are just a bunch of like savvy / shifty guys out there that are like, "Hey, people are buying stuff that says LItRPG. Let me take my book that has nothing to do with LItRPG and, you know, put it on there, and then people will buy it." Luckily, people have Kindle Unlimited, and I think our members are very good about, you know, blasting a book that doesn't really fit on there. So, I mean, I guess the best thing that I could say for people that are just getting into it is look at the pinned post that we have at the top of our group, and the only things that make it up there are things that have either been read by myself or plenty of other people that are like, this is lit RPG, this is where this belongs. But there's a lot of fakers out there. Which sucks. But the other cool thing is that there's people that are, have been on Royal Road for a little bit, and they're, putting their stuff out there. I will say it seems like there's a lot of frustration for a lot of readers that people are not putting up a finished story yet because they're just kind of really excited to get it out there. I think that's one way or the other. It's kind of just depend on how people are comfortable and the kind of feedback they're getting. I will say that for me, and this is just my personal thing as a reader, I like reading like a finished story more. I don't care if it's not 100% polished or anything like that, but if I'm going to get wrapped up in your world, I'm going to be pissed. What kind of asshole would leave a cliffhanger just randomly there? That's horrible. So, yeah.
Oh, you're too much, man. But I hear what you're saying as far as like the influx of authors is wonderful, but it also has some negative aspects to it. Like you said, there are some people who just kind of jump in, and maybe their stuff was intended for another genre, but they're kind of attaching the LITRPG title onto it because it might boost sales potentially, or maybe in their mind it's totally LITRPG, but it maybe doesn't fit the norms that you or I are in particular are looking at. And again, I agree that our community is very good about sniffing out the bullshit. They're very good about this is not really, even though you put it on the Amazon listing in a LITRPG, this is definitely not because of this reason. And a lot of what I do personally for our website at Geek Bytes Podcast with our LITRPG list is that exact same thing. I run through probably 10, 15 stories a month where I'm just reading things and I'm like, nope, this doesn't make it. See you later. And I end up putting out, 4 or 5 books. A lot of them online, some of them on Amazon, saying, these are really good. These are the reasons I like them, and go enjoy them if you agree. And my list is something along the lines of like 80 series by now. But that's I'm not a doctor. I don't have all this other time consuming stuff. This is mostly what I do: entertainment, reporting, my Geek Bytes podcast, and reading LITRPG stuff. So I have the extra time to do this kind of thing. But I'm a member of that community who tries to snuff out those stories that are good, but there's not LITRPG, or they're the LITRPG, but they're not done very well, that kind of stuff. And so I the community does a great job of kind of self-policing, and while we're very welcoming, we're also quick to point out if your stuff doesn't quite match.
No, we can be absolutely brutal. And they're like definitely the enforcers in our group that they pop up like a little bit more often than others. But people are just very much like, I didn't like this for this reason. And I think that's good. I think it's valid. I think that, people have like pointed out the same thing with me. And I think that it moves me forward because you can get wrapped up in your own world. Like good and bad feedback is necessary for this process. So
it's sometimes it's a creative community process of moving your books, especially because as a published author, you need to not just satisfy yourself, you're also satisfying the needs of your readers. And so a majority of your readers really hate this particular aspect, you have to sometimes take consideration of, is that something I need to change? Because so many people are telling me, like 1 or 2 trolls, I get you can ignore. But if half your readership is saying, this absolutely sucks, sometimes you'll think, okay, is this something I need to do something about?
I agree. And that was one of the biggest issues that I had when I first came on, and that you don't want to feel like you're pandering. But at the same time, there really is a bit of a covenant between the author and the reader, and you want to create a story that works for you, but also works for them. And I think that if your ego gets too involved in it, then it's going to be detrimental to the creative process. So I think, you write the story that is going to be true to you, but it's a foolish person that, thinks they're completely an island and will not listen to feedback or, just a good idea when it comes along.
Yeah, absolutely. I hear you, man. So excited to hear the audiobook when it comes out about September. Cross your fingers, of course. Same time, the LITRPG meetup around Dragon Con, also on September the 1st. Hopefully by that time we'll get to read some of your comics. If you do start that Kickstarter, shoot the link to me. We'll put it up. I'll blast it everywhere I can. I'll definitely contribute to it, whether I choose able to go or not. But for now, let's switch over to some of the questions from the audience. They had quite a few for you. And our first one comes from Sam Mounts. He asked the question everyone's thinking, when will book 5 come out?
So I think I'm gonna release book 5 right around the Dragon Con party. I definitely picked up a good deal more responsibility over the last couple of things, all the things that we've talked about that are happening. And honestly, I wanted book 5 to have like, kind of a good hard punch. So my schedule is going to be slightly lengthened, so I'll probably be 3 months in between. But yeah, I'm aiming for it to be done like the day before, the day of, or a couple days before the Dragon Con party. And I'm sorry,
hey, look,
it's for legal purposes. This is called the officially unofficial pre-Dragon Con party. So just so we're absolutely clear.
Yes. I'll call it the LItRPG meetup.
LItRPG meetup. That's a good thing to do. Yeah.
Okay, so look, going from 2 months to 3 months for most writers, that's an amazing pace still. Like George R. R. Martin takes years to write his books. So the fact that you're still on pace to do a fully fleshed out, edited, polished book every 2 to 3 months, the fans are still going to be happy, I think.
Well, it's the story is inside of me. Honestly, it just like I know exactly where I'm going. Like it's all like for 50 books, literally. It's just I know where I want to go. And then the twists and turns surprise even me, like I said, as I develop it. But yeah, I'm very clear about where I want to go and what I want to do. So
now, speaking of 50 books, Marquise Diamond Stafford, he asked, is it really true that you plan to write 50 books or more?
I absolutely plan to write 50 books. And more than that, I kind of plan to write 50 books in this, storyline timeline. Now, whether or not I, take a little bit of time off to start developing other stories or side stories, that's definitely a possibility, but that's not going to happen at least for another year or two, because I just have a lot to say here. Last night I went onto Brandon Sanderson's Amazon page, and if you ever want to be humbled, just start clicking through all of his stories, and you're like, I'm nothing. I'm not worthy. This is no. I want to create. It feels very much like I can leave something behind me, and I have a lot to say with it. So as long as I can keep it fun, and as long as I don't lose my way, there will be 50 books. Yeah.
Okay, you heard him, Marquise. He's confirmed. Scout's honor. 50 books or more at this point. Our plan. He's not going to write them all this year, though. So just. Marquise also had a second question. Now this is related more towards your story choices. Why have you limited your character to only being able to receive one place of power?
So I have not necessarily limited my character to receive only one place of power, and how that develops is a major spoiler. So nothing more for that. Yeah.
Well, no, when I was reading your book, I never thought like he was necessarily limited. Like I always felt more of a conquering the community kind of thing, like a real-time strategy game where you're capturing special places of power and maybe growing your community that way. So in reading your story, I never really assumed, but I can see how some people have, because he's been stuck at that one place. Not really stuck, but he's been only in that one place for all the books.
4 months. For 4 months. Not that long. He's done a lot of stuff. Yeah.
It seems like years to the readers, man.
I know. And that's why I'm going to, in the revision, like I said, going to put like day one, the month, the year, and it'll just be much easier to crack out. But no, there are definitely going to be other settlements, other places of power, other things that are going to come up. But I mean, who's going to take a band of 400 women and children and a couple dudes and try to mess with someone else? It's not a good idea. Now, what happens in the future and the kind of moral and emotional choices he has to make if he wants to get certain things, that's definitely going to be a huge part of the series.
Yeah, this is just me speculating personally. I foresee the other places of power coming in with the other Chaos Seeds characters potentially. Like they've also created communities around potentially these places of power. Like they've been drawn to them, and they're going to get conflicts of ideas between these settlements. Like Richards is very much light side. Some other Chaos Seed might very much be dark side. And those two ideology are going to necessarily come to conflict because they can't always exist and have such a huge impact in their changing of the fundamental structure of the land that they're going to come to blows at some point.
There's definitely going to be issues with other Chaos Seeds. There's going to be other Chaos Seeds that are just chilling out. You know, he found a hot chick and he decided to hang out. That might be his thing. And there's going to be other chaos seeds that are living an almost cursed life, and there's going to be other ones that you know, use their knowledge for what we would consider like the wrong ends. And that's going to start coming up more and more. One of the criticisms that people have given me, I think we talked about this last time, is like, it's called Chaos Seeds, so where are the other ones? And I pointed out that he's in a very small location on a planet the size of Jupiter or bigger. So and he was also one of the first ones, and it's only been 3 to 4 months. So it's going to come up. One of the things that you can rely on my story is that power collects power. That, you know, there is that sort of like impetus as maybe even one of the natural laws of the land. So conflict is inevitable. But, you know, when that happens and how it manifests is something that I've, again, sort of plotted out 50 books through, though you will not have to wait 50 books to see more chaos seeds. Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that it's not going to be book 50 where we see some chaos seeds coming up, man. Ardell Richardson had a question for you, though. We talked about this first one, so we'll skip it. Second one, though, directly addresses why Catacombs is named for the fourth book, considering it was not really about sorting out the goblins in the catacombs.
I wrote a very long expose on that and posted it a couple different places. But basically, in the forums where, you know, I talked to the people that are, you know, kind of chiming in a lot, I sort of talked about that it was a bit of a joke that the titles don't necessarily lead to exactly where they're going to go. And, you know, I talked about how I like for people to be surprised. Now, because I've been talking to people about that on the forums, I kind of assumed everyone got it, and that was a wrong assumption. So I am not going to say that everything in the future will be perfectly planned out. I think that's super boring. But I will say that the swarm will have something to do with swarminess. So, yeah.
Like, personally, man, I understand that some people get really upset about feeling like they're misled by the title, but me, I didn't realize that the story had so little to do with the catacombs when I read book 4. Like, he mentions it, so it's there somewhere. I know that, but I was so engrossed in the actual story of the Miss Village upkeep, all the different little adventures he goes to, all the creation stuff and all the crafting things that happen, that I kind of forgot the title existed at all. It's not one of those things like where you have to open a book physically every time. It's on your Kindle e-reader, so you're just kind of scrolling through pages, and after the first, you know, look, I kind of forgot what the title was at all.
I mean, honestly, I thought it was going to be a small little joke, but yes, people were cursing me, so I decided to address it. Yeah,
it was like one of those things besides the cliffhanger where I screamed at my book, and at a lot of other people. That was kind of the biggest criticism of book 4. People realized, oh, this isn't touching on a major plot point in the show. I'm like, it's just a title. It doesn't have to be that important. It's just that's what I thought. It's a name you throw in there, man. It's okay.
That's what I thought. But yeah, that is one of the feedbacks that I have internalized and will work in accordingly one way or the other. Yeah.
Oh, hey, as long as you keep writing, I think that's going to be a bigger deal for other people. Now, moving on to our next question, Austin Youngblood asks, what are your long-term goals and aspirations for A, the land, B, LItRPG as a genre, and C?
My goal for the land is the same thing that I had the very first day. I want to write a story that I would want to read, and I want to write a story that's honest and true for how things are going to go. So as I move forward, there's going to be heartbreak, there's going to be joy, there's going to be excitement, there's going to be people that are going to be angry, and I've always thought, you know, I read, one of my favorite stories growing up was Pygmalion, and I thought it was amazing if an author could make someone laugh, and that was one of my goals. And if I can just keep making people have an emotional reaction, that's what I want for the land. You know, and obviously to have a Warcraft movie made out of it, that would be awesome too. As far as LItRPG, I want us to be established. I want us to be recognized. I want us not to have to fall under cyberpunk on Amazon because we've gotten our own group. I want us to be linked to the video game websites. I want us to, you know, start reaching out to fans of all ages and start being recognized and being able to make something that's really amazing. And I think that both the authors and the readers are a part of something where we're birthing this right now. And I'm really happy about the part that I can do to kind of guide that.
Absolutely. And third, what are your aspirations for your website, litrpg.com?
Yeah, it'd be great if it didn't take so long to load. That would be awesome. That's something I need to figure out. So litrpg.com right now is pretty much synonymous with, the land or the Mist Village. And in the future, that's going to grow out. If you could type in sci-fi.com, you could type in mmorpg.com, and you see how it starts branching out to something bigger. And as LitRPG grows, there's going to be a bigger place for LitRPG as a whole on the website. Right now, I already have one of my whole pages dedicated to a list of other LitRPGs, so that, if anyone's on there and they don't need to just find out about my books, they can find out about everyone else's books. It's carbon copy paste from the list that we have on the Facebook group. So in the future, hopefully more authors will be able to, advertise on there. More authors can put up their issues. It can be a forum website for all of the readers, so it can be just a central community. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, especially with such a recognizable name as litrpg.com. I was among the group of people who collectively screamed when you got the domain name that we had all been kind of, biting of the chimp to get it if we had the money for it, unfortunately. And I certainly hope that you do grow the community around that domain, because it's a great place. It has great potential to kind of focus the world eye on a domain for our community.
Yeah, I think it's going to be awesome, and I think LitRPG is just awesome as a whole, honestly.
Yeah, but it might be one of those things that you have to kind of outsource a little bit, because I know keeping up with web domain stuff and posting things, that's kind of a complicated process for a lot of people. And if anyone in the audience is listening and you want to volunteer your time and services to Aleron, you can reach him at Richard the Land, I think it is, at gmail.com.
Yeah, Richter in the Land at gmail.com. So RICHTERINTHE land at gmail.com. Or, you can just hit me up on the LitRPG Facebook. That's also super easy. But yeah, anyone that's got skills with comic books, anyone that has skills with, web, anyone, that would be awesome if we could, start coming up with some awesome ideas and incorporating it so it really does reflect our community as a whole.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you don't have to do this all by yourself, man. I mean, just like Richter in the Mist Village, he has people to help him out. So, and you have this community who's very loyal to this fiction. So, hey, hit them up. I'm sure they could use the extra practice, if nothing else.
That would be awesome.
Do this kind of stuff, man.
Yeah, that would be awesome. That would be awesome. Yeah.
Okay. Now on to Austin England's second question. What is the best way to keep up with you and your work?
So right now, it seems like our Facebook group is the best vehicle. As I get the website up, I'm going to just basically have everyone sign up for a newsletter, and then, maybe just send people a blast like once a month so it doesn't piss anyone off, but everyone stays in touch. Also, I've got my own author page, Aleron Kong, at facebook.com. So that's super easy. And on the forums, this is actually something I was trying to recommend to people, that the forums under my books on my Amazon page it's just comedy, and people are putting a lot of stuff up there. And if people are just looking for something to read for a night, I would recommend going through. It's, hundreds of pages of, readers and fans and, my responses, and it's hilarious. Yeah.
Yeah, and we're going to, of course, have all those links to all those places: your reader page, your author page on Amazon, the Facebook group, your website, all that good stuff, including, where they can find your things at the end of the podcast, and his interview and all the show notes for anything, folks. So if you're interested in that, you have to wait till the end, but it'll all be there for you.
Right on.
Now, me personally, I have a single question about your storyline that I'm kind of curious about. In book 4, you introduced coin collecting. I'm interested to see where you're going with that.
So I really like the idea of there being massive quests and massive powers that are independent of the Chaos Seeds, independent of Richter. Basically, we're entering the world of the land that is this amazingly old and pivotal thing for all of reality. And it just wouldn't really make sense or be realistic that everything was just starting with the advent of, these guys that are showing up. So that is the first glimpse we have of one of the underlying kind of deeper quests that, you know, are just threaded through this world. Yeah.
Hey, awesome. I love to hear that. I almost thought it was a kind of an homage to like the collection aspects of a lot of video games where you had to collect all the different cards in Gwent and Witcher 3 or, you know, whatever collection things they have there. But it's good to see that it's actually playing a bigger role in the powers of your world.
Well, I mean, so that's one of the things that I try to do. I like to get pieces of the things that we love, like a Firefly reference here, or, you know, like a Ghostbusters reference here, or a, you know, an allusion to, like, you know, NES Dragon Warrior there, but then tie it to something deeper. I've always thought the real power of fantasy and science fiction is not really looking at the fantastic, but it gives us a world that we can set any kind of rules to, and it helps us better examine our own humanity. I feel like that's the real power of The Walking Dead. It's not about the zombies. It's about what happens to us in this kind of scenario that we can paint. Real power of Battlestar Galactica. It wasn't about the robots. It was about what happens to our humanity in the scenario that we can create. So I feel like the fantastic helps us to know, you know, the real banality and wonder of who we are on a daily basis. And so, you know, that's what I
absolutely agree with you. Your novels are doing a great job of that. I definitely seen a book for Richard's feeling the weight of being a leader. He's you know, heavy is the head that bears the crown and all that stuff. And so he's feeling the weight of what it really means to be a leader of a community, what the responsibilities are, that you can't just go out on month-long adventures, that it'll affect your community as a whole, and you have to devote time to these other people in addition to your own progression.
That's definitely going to be part of it. I didn't want it to just kind of just be like some frat boy walking through life. It's like you have to start making serious decisions, and some of them are going to be right, some of them are going to be wrong, and some of them are going to be horrifying. And that's what we're going to start seeing more and more.
Yep, definitely good. Okay, so this is about the end of the interview. It's been about an hour. Good time. Is there anything that you want to add to the discussion, or anything you want to say before we end?
Yeah, you know, I mean, just thank you. Thanks for having me back on. Thank you to all of my readers. Like, none of this would be happening if you guys, you know, didn't support the story, didn't, like, you know, when you send me reviews, when you send me positive words, it means the world. It's awesome. I was lucky enough to be one of the top 100 authors on Amazon in April. So that was awesome. And I don't know, I just hope that I can keep moving forward my craft, and I hope that everyone keeps finding a resonance with it. So, yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much for you taking the time out. Again, everyone, we're going to show the links to everywhere you can find Aleron Kong and his works, whether it's LItRPG.com or the Facebook page or his the group or his personal pages for his authorship or his Reddit MA or his Goodreads stuff. all that stuff is going to be in the show notes for this episode, and also on our website at geekbytespodcast.com. So I thank you very much for taking the time out of your busy schedule, Aleron, to talk to me, to talk to your community. I know everyone loves hearing from you, and these videos, they get a lot of good views because people like you and they love your stories. And so thank you again for taking the time out. If you want to say goodbye, we'll end the podcast at that point. Okay.
Hey man, it was great being here, and yeah, I love you guys too. You know, hugs, kittens, and kisses, and all that stuff. Yeah, great, the good things. I'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks, man.
Okay, thank you everyone for listening for Geek Bytes Podcast. I'm Ramon Mejia, and remember, go geek out about something.